Hey everybody, it's me, it's Matty D. And welcome to Matty D's Nitro Dream, where my Nitro Dream is to review every single episode of WCW Monday Nitro from the very start to the very end. And I did say before in my first ever review of the first ever Nitro that I might be doing these reviews until I'm 40, and to be honest with you, based on the fact that I haven't uploaded a video in the last 3 months, it could be something I'm doing well into my 50s at this stage. I do have a good reason for not uploading any videos. I contracted, whatever the word is, got COVID-19 back in February, and it really laid me out. It really hit me hard and kind of left me on the floor for quite some time, so I wasn't able to come on here and do any reviews. Then whenever I was back from having COVID, there was a lot of issues in work. A lot of people had COVID there, and I was having to do insane hours to fill in for them. And just in general, I felt very mentally low recently and haven't felt like making notes and doing a whole big review of pro wrestling. But I'm back again here today, and I'm here to discuss Monday Nitro from the 13th of November, 1995. And this is now, the Raw rating this week against Nitro was a 2.6 to Nitro's 2.0. So for whatever reason, this Nitro did not do well. I think personally, right now, the buzz of a brand new wrestling show competing against Monday Night Raw every single week has kind of died down a lot, and the buzz just isn't there and the hype just isn't there. And while this show, spoiler alert, ends up being a really, really solid show that I heavily enjoyed, it wasn't particularly high on star power and excitement. I mean, it was high on excitement, but it wasn't high on that casual viewer drawing things, especially after the first match. There was a bit of a long match that I very much enjoyed in the middle, but it didn't feel like a attention grabbing big main event Monday Nitro that would keep wrestling fans hooked from start to finish. But we'll get into it here. We have on this card an opening match between Randy Savage and Meng of the Dungeon of Doom. We have Chris Benoit in action, competing in a singles match. We had Eddie Guerrero versus Johnny B. Bad for the WCW Television Championship in a match that, again, spoiler alert, ends up being really good. And then in the main event, Sting versus Dean Malenko. So I think the middle was probably the reason why they lost viewers here, because it doesn't pop in terms of that star power. But oh boy, does it pop in terms of that in-ring action, thanks to Mr. Chris Benoit and Mr. Eddie Guerrero. But we'll get into that. So we start off the show here with Mongo, Eric Bischoff, and Bobby the Brain Heenan here hyping the big 60-man battle royal at WW3, World War III, the 60-man battle royal. 3 rings, 3 giants, whoever these giants may be, and only one winner who will not just become the #1 contender for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship, they will become the WCW World Heavyweight Champion after the giant got stripped of his title a couple of weeks back. So there, Mongo, Eric, and Bobby are hyping it up here, and Mongo is flying Pepe around in a little Superman cape that Mongo claims that Pepe's super dog this week, and he's paying homage to all those supermen in wrestling, such as he didn't say this, but such as Mr. Lex Luger here, who looks like just an absolute Superman legend on this t-shirt. I love it. So there's a bit of hype about the episode coming up and the Battle Royal, and we then pitch to the former World Heavyweight Champion, who's got something to say, and I'm assuming it's the giant here. It cuts to a dark dungeon, the camera pans slowly, and all you can hear is the giant making sinister growling noises in the background. But the thing is, it's not the giant. Oh, shock horror. It's Hulk Hogan, who is wielding a sword. He has a black hoodie on. He has a black mask on with little cuts for eyelets, as if he's the original Night Stalker. And the Hulkster just looks absolutely insane here. He does not look like Hulk Hogan, wrestling star of the 80s, the legendary Hulk Hogan. Kind of like to be honest with you, foreshadowing for his turn in the NWO, because there's a lot of black in this imagery, the black hood, it's all darkness, and it does invoke some, some kind of recognition of what Hulk Hogan will become later on. But this is a bad promo. It's cringy. Hulk Hogan sounds very sinister and evil, which probably isn't the plan here. He's got a sword, I think I've already mentioned that. And Hulk Hogan cuts this cringy promo against the Dungeon of Doom. He starts talking about how Randy Savage is going to beat Meng tonight and bring Meng's head to Hogan on a silver platter. All things that you just don't expect your top babyface who talks about vitamins and prayers to come out with. Hulk Hogan claims that there is a strange presence lurking, and it's because he doesn't trust the man called Sting right now. The Dungeon of Doom are on Hulk Hogan's list, but in the near future, if Sting doesn't declare exactly what side he's on, Hulk Hogan demands that Sting will be at the top of his hit list. So, ooh, very, very scary stuff. And this is an iconic bad promo, and you can see why, but I just think it's worth noting how much it feels cringy and corny, as if it's the big, nasty, stinky giant just about to appear, and then the Hulkster himself appears, and it's very weird. And I do, like, anybody who is a fan of wrestling from back then probably is very well aware of Hulk Hogan's promo here, a lot more than the whole, the promo of Hulkster and Randy Savage at Venice Beach, where the guitar player's doing, playing this song about how Hulk Hogan's gonna take people's head and all this crazy stuff. It's just insane. The mid-90s, WCW was absolutely crazy at the time, and this is a crazy promo. So we hear eerie music playing as Hulk Hogan tells the Macho Man to moose fast, move swift, and bring him Meng's head. And Hulk Hogan does say here, moose fast. I don't know why they didn't cut it or try to retape it, or maybe they were all so unnatural and bad. This was the best of a bad bunch. But it is bad, man. It is really, really bad. And Hulk getting all mush-mouthed and talking about moose, bringing moose heads and all this crazy stuff. It is not a great promo, and you can see why it's legendary. Our first in-ring action tonight is between Meng and Randy Savage, and we will find out if Randy Savage gets to take Meng's head off. Should I give a spoiler? Yeah, I probably should. He doesn't take Meng's head off, I'm sorry. But we still have Haku nowadays, so that's something to be thankful for, that the Macho Man didn't go that far. So Meng comes down with the Taskmaster. Meng is so impressive, and he's very stiff and hard-hitting. And it's such a, like I say, it's such a testimony to how great Meng is that he still wrestles nowadays, and he still wrestles to quite a good standard from what I've heard. I haven't actually seen a lot of his content nowadays because I'm just not big into wrestling. I don't watch a lot of current wrestling now. So Randy Savage's theme plays, and the shocking thing is that Randy Savage doesn't come out, but he attacks Meng from behind instead to kickstart the match. Macho Man gets on Meng from the outside. He's got a lot of intensity and fire here. Randy's wearing down Meng, beating him up. Just that thing that, even though Meng's on the receiving end of a beating, it shows he's such a badass that Randy can't beat him in traditional ways. He has to resort to getting nasty here, So Eric Bischoff works hard to sell the Dungeon of Doom, but from 83 Weeks Bischoff's podcast, you can really tell that he is not a fan of Eric Bischoff isn't a fan of the Dungeon of Doom in any way at the time, but didn't know enough about booking and kind of took their word for it and just continued on with it. But he's doing his best to sell here as Randy continues to attack Meng in the ring. Kevin Sullivan, he tries to interfere. He jumps on top of the rope on the top turnbuckle, but Randy Savage jumps on Kevin and knocks him straight off again, so the Taskmaster goes down. But this gives Meng a chance to kind of get back to his bearings again. And when Randy goes for a top rope attack, Meng catches Randy and gets that advantage as Jimmy Hart comes out. Jimmy Hart is so annoying here. So it's Meng's turn to attack Randy Savage on the outside and then hit some stiff shots in the corner in the ring. And while Randy's getting beaten in the corner, Jimmy Hart is just there with his megaphone shouting his silly heel catchphrases, his silly megaphone shtick that he did during the 80s when Jimmy was intended to be a babyface. So he is very annoying here, and Jimmy has go away heat with me, and I'm sure he had go away heat from the fans at the time. There's no way that he didn't. So Meng continues beating up Randy in the corner for ages and then climbs that top turnbuckle, but Randy Savage rolls out of the way and avoids the big splash that Meng was going for. Randy then throws Meng into Jimmy Hart, which got a big pop from me. Hits a stiff clothesline and then a beautiful elbow drop for the 1, 2, 3. This was a decent match. Meng looked like such a badass here. He got some hard shots into Randy Savage and looked like an absolute beast who Randy relied on a bit of distractions kind of backfiring in order to beat Meng, but the match was a tad short. I would have liked to have seen more of this. After the match, the Shark, who is one of the worst WCW gimmicks of all time, runs out to join Kevin Sullivan in attacking Savage, and then Lex Luger comes out, and I think for a split second that Lex, even though he has been helping the Dungeon of Doom recently, might be actually making the save, but no. Lex comes out and attacks Randy's shoulder against the ring post and gives Randy's shoulder an absolute battering. This is despite Sting calming Lex down last week, getting him to drop that hold that he had on Ric Flair. Lex is still clearly a heel right now, even though we do see a lot of is he a heel, is he a babyface to come in the upcoming months of Nitro. I think this was a long angle. Savage's arm is absolutely brutalized here as the announcers sell this is a bad injury for Randy Savage, and we cut to the break and we never hear about Randy's condition again, which does surprise me. I thought we would have heard something about how he was, had minor shoulder pain in the back, how he had an ice pack on, he might be injured and needed to go to the hospital, but there's no reference of him ever again. And that was decent. It was a decent segment. It was good character building for Lex Luger. Meng looked okay in defeat. I don't want to say looked strong in defeat, but Randy had to be on his A game to beat him here. And there's a lot of people. Randy Savage is so good. He can just wrestle circles around them and beat them very, very easily. So next match involved Kensuki Sasaki coming out to the ring. I'd never heard of Kensuki Sasaki before. It was my very first time seeing him wrestle, and I was very, very impressed. But this was the very first time that I seen him wrestle, and of course he came out to a very, oriental, that kind of old-fashioned Japanese theme music that you would expect a cliche, hard-hitting Japanese wrestler to have. But he come and I kind of groaned with it because it's such a cliche in wrestling for Japanese wrestlers to have this just mockery of a theme, but it's part of the times, So Kensuki Sasaki comes out with this very oriental themed music, very cliche themed music, and it's ahead of a match with Chris Benoit, and I have a good feeling about this. Sasaki looks like a beast. He looks really, really well. Is that it? Hold on, I'm going to leave this in because I want to explain what it is, but I believe there is a spider of some kind crawling on my roof or my ceiling. I'm not too sure, but the little guy deserves to, it's nice. I'm home alone right now, so it's nice to have a bit of company anyway. So I've never seen Sasaki wrestle before, like I said, but he looks great. He halts Chris Benoit's attempt at getting the jump on him very quickly and takes the advantage. Sasaki hits a really neat body slam on Chris Benoit, a nice power body slam. And while this is happening, Bobby the Brain Heenan is being grilled by Mongo and Eric Bischoff about all of his links to Japanese wrestling. And this happens throughout the show, but Bobby does a really good job here. He sells Kensuki's wrestling background, his powerlifting background, his karate fighting that he would have done, and does a really good job of making this guy look absolutely legit, and he looks legit here. Chris Benoit's only offense is a few desperate chops, and Sasaki hits a fantastic looking bulldog on Benoit. And whenever I watched wrestling back in 2004, the awful WWE version of the Cruiserweight division, all the Cruiserweights used the Bulldog as a finishing move. I mean, Spike Dudley's finisher was the Dudley Dog. And we don't see big wrestlers do Bulldogs enough nowadays. And we really should, because it looks so impressive from somebody like Sasaki. It just looks absolutely great. But it's a sad thing that we just don't see them very much anymore. So Chris Benoit reverses a German suplex attempt and kind of falls on Sasaki for a 1 count, but Sasaki just powers straight out of it. He looks like a beast here. And while this is happening, Eric announces that Sasaki will compete against Sting for the United States Championship in Tokyo sometime in the next week, which sounds like an awesome match based on this, to be honest with you. But while Eric is hyping up this match that Sasaki's going to be in, this big match in Japan, at that exact time, Chris Benoit actually gets some momentum and hits 2 German suplexes, then a full Nelson Dragon suplex, and that's it. 1, 2, 3, Sasaki's beaten. And it came from nowhere. It was a really good match. I liked what they were doing with this guy. Sasaki looked absolutely great here. And then Chris Benoit's win just came from absolutely nowhere, and essentially his very first offense of the match. And it didn't work well for me, that part. Like I say, I didn't really like the theme song and how just stereotypical the entrance theme was. But Sasaki looked absolutely awesome here. And I guess they had to have Chris Benoit win because he's on this winning streak ever since debuting in WCW. He's been winning a lot of matches, but I think it should have been a lot more even and probably a lot more longer than this as well. But it is what it is. It wasn't the worst thing in the world. It was 5 out of 10, solid enough. Like Chris Benoit, I don't think I've ever seen a bad Chris Benoit match until probably this series. I'm sure there'll be something in there. But this was great. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So there's the Saturday night plug, and it's hyping up what is going to be a great match. It's always a great match. We've seen it a couple of times on WCW TV now. When Chris Benoit takes on Eddie Guerrero, it's always good. It was good at ECW One Night Stand, the first one. It was good on SmackDown over the years. It's always great, and I really, really actually might go out of my way to watch that one. And they also hype up Sting versus Bunghouse. They also hype up Sting versus Bunkhouse Buck, which does not sound like an amazing match, as Benoit and Eddie Guerrero did. And Eric also announces that Dean Malenko's in action, which is always a good thing. I just want to very quickly talk about the segment that they hyped up last week that I said I would have a follow-up to, and then I got COVID and never had a chance to. When they hyped up on Saturday night a segment where Hacksaw Jim Duggan was in Ireland. And this segment is on YouTube, and I found it, and there's not much to it. It's Hacksaw basically is going back to his Irish roots, which is what a lot of Americans do. They claim to have these Irish roots. And Hacksaw Jim Duggan went over to Ireland and went to the Temple Bar and kind of acted like an idiot. He didn't know where he was going. And eventually he went to the bar of this older gentleman who tracked down Hacksaw's relatives and his ancestors. And it turned out that his ancestors used to get involved in taped fist fighting, which I don't know if that was a thing or not in Ireland. I am from Northern Ireland. I am, Irish. I'm on this island. But at the same time, I have never heard of a taped fist match. I've heard of taped fist matches, obviously, but I've never heard of this taped fist background. But it's Hacksaw's gimmick. He tapes up his fist and then hits a pretty stern, stiff punch for the win. So it was interesting. I'll link it below in the description here. But it wasn't the best thing. It wasn't the best thing in the world, that's for sure. And I know there's overuse of this ATM Eric narrative. There's overuse about WCW spending money and it all being Eric Bischoff's fault, but the transit of getting Hacksaw Jim Duggan over to Ireland was not worth this brief segment, that's for sure. So next up was a WCW Television Championship match between Eddie Guerrero and Johnny B. Bad. And I'm excited for this. So I love Johnny B. Bad's gimmick. I love his entrance. From what I've seen in his in-ring work going into this match, he's all entrance, he's all show, he's all flashiness, but there's actually not that much substance behind the presentation. And that's why I very firmly felt going into this match that Johnny B. Bad should lose the WCW Television Championship to Eddie Guerrero here. He, as much as I'm a fan of him, as much as I love the entrance, it is cringy, especially looking back on it nowadays. I don't think it was as bad in the mid-90s, although I have heard that television was moving away from characters like Johnny B. Bad, even at that stage. But Johnny B. Bad is out with a frisbee in hand, and instead of his confetti gun, because apparently Diamond Dallas Page won it from him. I don't know what any of this is about. It must be a B-show storyline, but it's just funny seeing Johnny with this WCW branded frisbee, because WCW would brand absolutely anything back then. And disappointingly, Eddie Guerrero gets the jobber entrance here. He just is in the ring waiting for Johnny B. Bad, which is strange for such a big title match, but maybe they were running out of time, although it was live, so I don't know if that even was the case. But Eddie makes up for not having his match here, even though Eddie is still that bland babyface mode that he's in at the very start of his WCW career. So Johnny and Eddie shake hands before the match because they're both babyfaces at the time. And then they get into things. They start grappling as Bobby the Brain Heenan kind of downplays the whole receiving money for helping bring in all the Japanese talent in WCW. He's very respectful here. Very, I'm Bobby the Brain and I'm a distinguished gentleman and I wouldn't take any backhanders. I'm just helping my Japanese friends. So it's quite amusing. And Johnny hits, to my surprise, a really impressive over-the-top rope leg drop for a 2 count, which I would not have guessed from reputation that Mark Merrow would be as athletic as he is. I didn't think that Mark Merrow would have that high-flying style that he showed in that move. And things get even stranger because Johnny throws Eddie to the mat from the top turnbuckle, then hits a flying sunset flip over Eddie Guerrero's head, and then sends Eddie through the ropes. And at this stage, I'm like, wow, Mark Merrow, Johnny B. Bad has this in his arsenal? Where has this been, in the narrative that I've heard from Mark Merrow and how he wasn't, much in the ring. He wasn't much of a worker. I didn't know that Johnny B. Bad could come into a match against Eddie Guerrero and be the more impressive high flyer, but that's what he was here. Johnny dives onto Eddie and I just had a complete brain fog there, which has happened since COVID, which is kind of disappointing. But Johnny dives onto Eddie Guerrero and then nearly loses to a very close near fall when Johnny jumps back into the ring and Eddie Guerrero moves out of the way. He starts getting some great punches to Eddie Guerrero's head, and Johnny B. Bad is over here. The crowd are kind of elevating themselves whenever Johnny B. Bad hits these punches. And at this stage, Eddie Guerrero's knocked down. He's on the ground. Eric Bischoff, ever the all-rounder in sports, references Evander Holyfield being knocked out by Riddick Bowe on November the 4th, 1995. I had to do a bit of research with that because Eric just says that Eddie Guerrero's like Evander Holyfield right now, and I didn't want to claim that he just got knocked out willy-nilly whenever he possibly didn't, but that happened. So Eddie then gets a bit of fire in his belly and runs at Johnny B. Bad after recovering and starts throwing fists, throwing proper punches down on Johnny B. Bad. And this has went from being very friendly, very cordial, very respectful to now being a fight because both men want this TV title. It's dramatic. They have high energy. They both want to be the victors, which is what I want from my wrestling. That's what wrestling is. 2 men or women wanting to win badly, and I love seeing it. So both men, they kind of come to their senses. They kind of calm down and start chain wrestling again as the announcer declares that the 10-minute time limit is going to expire in 2 minutes to add a bit of drama here. So Johnny B. Bad hits a tombstone pile driver, and surely that's it. But no! Eddie Guerrero kicks out at 2. There's even more 2 counts here. Eddie Guerrero starts getting some roll-ups, and Mongo claims at this stage that there's more 2 counts here than an identical twin convention. which is just classic Mongo. Only Mongo could come up with lines like that. Eddie Guerrero hits a tornado DDT, and I think Eddie's got to win here after that. But again, Johnny B. Bad kicks out. Both men then clash in the middle of the ring and take each other out, just as the announcer declares that there's 30 seconds left, and it looks like it's unlikely here for there to be a winner. Eddie and Johnny pummel each other as the bell rings for the draw, and still after the match, Johnny B. Bad, Eddie Guerrero still going at it hard in that ring, but eventually they calm down, everything simmers down. Johnny still is the television champion because the title can't change hands through a draw, which is such a fantastic concept because I love the fact that, one, the match is guaranteed to be less than 10 minutes, so it's going to be high tempo, high intensity, and two, it's an achievement to take the championship off somebody because you have to do it in 10 minutes or less, and I wish there would be more emphasis like that on the television titles of nowadays. But anyways, both men, they calm down and eventually shake hands and then embrace each other in a hug as Bobby the Brain Heenan freaks out in sheer disgust. But this was great, you know, this is a 9 out of 10 match for me. It's one of the best matches I've seen in Nitro so far. I was genuinely shocked. I expected something dour here, something average, something kind of middling, kind of just there, but they blew me away. And surprisingly, in a match between Eddie Guerrero and Johnny B. Bad, Guerrero was outshone by a person you just wouldn't expect. Mark Merrow, Johnny, he was the star of the match. He was the MVP, and that really took me by surprise. 9 out of 10, very, very good. And I want to see more of Johnny B. Bad and Eddie Guerrero. I never thought I would say that. It was surprisingly really good. So the announce team started talking about how Hulk Hogan will be there next week, and he wants one man. Bobby guesses that it's going to be the Giant. Mongo guesses that it's going to be Jimmy Hart. But no, Hulk Hogan wants Sting. So that's a big surprise and quite shocking. And again, there's a bit of foreshadowing here that Hulk Hogan is going to kind of veer towards taking on baby faces more often. This is the long burn to Hulk Hogan turning heel and joining the NWO, which was not planned. Don't get me wrong, this was not a master plan. This was no cinema, no long scheduled amazing thing. It was rushed to Hulk Hogan heel turn, but you can see a bit of accidental foreshadowing here. So Mean Gene is in the ring with the Taskmaster, the Giant, and Jimmy Hart. And Gene wants to admonish, in his own words, he's already talked about this in the hotline, but he wants to personally admonish Jimmy Hart in front of the whole public. I miss the announcers with guts. I really, really do. Mean Gene is mad that Jimmy Hart betrayed Hulk Hogan at Halloween Havoc and sold the Hulkster down the river. But Jimmy Hart just kind of no-sells it. He brags about how he sold out Hogan, and you can just tell Gene is disgusted. He's betrayed. He's shocked at Jimmy Hart doing such an awful thing, and it's just fantastic. I love Mean Gene so much. He is amazing here. Hart just doesn't care though. He chuckles that he doesn't know what to do with his 200 Hulk Hogan jackets, and then gives the mic over to Kevin Sullivan, which is bit of a nothing promo from Jimmy here. Kevin Sullivan claims that he has dreamed for 10 years. He has plotted and stayed awake at night, just desperately fantasizing and planning about how to end Hulkamania, which is a bit sad, to be honest with you. It's a bit, Kevin maybe doesn't have enough time on his hands. You know, the Taskmaster is it's a bit sad, isn't it? Apologies, everybody. I'm super thirsty right now, as you can see. But anyways, so the Kevin Sullivan saying that he's dreamed about for 10 years about ending Hulkamania. And the Taskmaster starts hyping up the big 60-man battle royal at World War III, and very presumptuously declares that the Giant will be the winner. The Giant then cuts a promo about the battle royal at World War III, as Kevin Salt, the Giant says he's going to win, he's going to throw all the men over the top rope, all those cliches, he's going to be WCW World Heavyweight Champion, as Kevin Sullivan very bizarrely pretends to have a seizure. He just starts, convulsing like this, which is very offensive, by the way, and then ends up on the ground, and it's obvious he's faking it. It's not like, oh, look, Kevin Sullivan's had a heart attack in the ring. It's just played, look at this fool acting like a fool, and it's very bizarre. And again, a lot of the Dungeon and Doom and Hulk Hogan things, it's entertaining, it's funny, it's great to watch back on, but objectively, it is bad. It is really bad. So Dean Malenko comes out as stern and cold as ever for his match against Sting, and I am excited for this little gem. The Stinger, the Master of the Scorpion Deathlock against Dean Malenko, the Iceman. Sting comes out in these awful bright green tights, and he is extremely over. To start the match, Sting versus Dean Malenko. So Dean and Sting lock up as Eric starts telling Bobby that Bobby has made being a con artist an art form, and Bobby the Brain Heenan responds with the best quip I've ever heard. He just quite simply thanks Eric, and he is awesome. I love Bobby the Brain Heenan so much. So Brain sells how legit Dean Malenko is, but Mongo thinks that Malenko has no chance in this match. He is just convinced that Mongo is getting defeated here. So Eric Bischoff references Dan Gable as an example of a small man who can beat much bigger men in order to kind of, put over Dean Malenko, as Sting offers Dean a handshake, but Malenko just is too focused on victory to accept it. I like that a lot. It's not a heel refusing a handshake or somebody having a heel turn. It's just a wrestler who's basically saying, I am so determined, I am not going to lose this match. I'm going to not lose my focus for a second on you, Stinger, that he does not want to shake hands. He will save the handshaking for after the match, I suppose. I really like that. It's not heelish of Dean Malenko at all. It's just common sense. It makes a lot of sense. So during the break, Sting tried to put the Scorpion Deathlock on Malenko. He locked it in, but just as Sting did, Dean makes the ropes. Mongo admits that he's underestimated the Iceman by this stage. I think he's been smartened up maybe during the break that it's not a good idea to just completely bury a talent like Dean Malenko. Dean hits this mean dropkick to Sting's knee and starts dominating things, because that looked bad. You don't very often see somebody targeting a specific joint on the legs with a dropkick, so that was really cool to see and enjoy. And Malenko's pretty dominant here. He throws Sting into the corner. Malenko hits a mean German suplex with the bridge for a 2 count. Sting dodges a dropkick attempt, but straight away he can't capitalize, misses Dean Malenko in the corner, and gets hit by a dropkick from the top rope, which looks fantastic. Again, everything about Dean Malenko is so crisp and smooth and cool, and that's probably why he's called the Iceman. But things go south for Malenko after that, but I'm glad that he had that moment in the sun, that kind of point where he proved Mongo wrong very quickly. It was a rare, I really enjoy Mongo's commentary, but I think it was a rare mistake to downplay Malenko as much as he did. So Malenko hits that drop kick from the top turnbuckle. He goes for that Texas Cloverleaf, but Sting reverses it into a pin, just a small package for the win. And that was a great match. For as short as it was, it showcased Dean Malenko. There was a lot of good character work in there. Sting's the star, Sting's the main eventer, Sting's the man in WCW. So he was always going to get that victory here. But a thoroughly enjoyable match, and I gave it a 7 out of 10. Despite its shortness, it was very enjoyable, and all the matches in this show were either solid or ruined by shortness a little bit. Aside, the Johnny B. Bad and Eddie Guerrero title match was the only thing that I thoroughly enjoyed. I was hooked to the edge of my seat, but everything else is fine, albeit a bit short and a bit, there was pacing issues there. So we cut to a break as Mongo says, sometimes it takes a while to get this is why we're cutting to the break after Sting's won. You can just hear Mongo say, sometimes it takes a while to get into the meat of the matter, and all you hear is Bobby saying, Bobby the Brain Heenan just saying, oh, shut up. Oh, it was absolutely fantastic. It was perfect timing. Just Bobby adding in very quickly, oh, shut up, when Mongo was doing his usual shtick, essentially, just babbling on a little bit. It was a glorious, glorious moment that I enjoyed. Bobby the Brain Heenan is a highlight of Nitro every week. Bobby and Mean Gene, to be honest with you, are my favourite people on the show, probably, because they're so entertaining. It's okay for commentators and for interviewers to have personality and guts and a bit of something about them, which is sorely missing nowadays. There's a lack of personality with commentary in general, and Bobby the Brain is so missed. So, aforementioned Bobby, Mongo, and Eric Bischoff start discussing Hogan versus next week and his big match against Sting, and they cut to Mean Gene, who's in the ring right now with Sting, in order to get the Stinger's words on everything about the Hulkster. So Mean Gene tells Sting that he's heard through the phone that it's going to be Sting versus Hogan next week, and essentially asks Sting what's going on with him and Lex Luger, because somebody needs to ask the important questions, because it is not clear at all. I mean, we know the general storyline, we know it's a bit of intrigue, we know is Lex good or bad, is Sting good or bad, but it's very oddly paced at times. It doesn't work a lot of times for me. It doesn't work for me, brother. It's not bad though, for sure. So Sting claims very aggressively, I have nothing against the Hulkster, which sounds like he has something against the Hulkster, and reveals that he let it slide when Hulk Hogan called him a dog, because Sting knows he is a dog. He's the big dog in WCW. Sting is the big dog before Roman Reigns was even thought about by fans. Sting was the man. So Mean Gene inexplicably explains that if it looks, now you'll understand, I know it's quite a common saying up to a point, but Mean Gene explains that if it looks like a rat, if it smells like a rat, and if it quacks like a rat, then it is a rat, and something smells fishy with Sting and Lex Luger. I don't know, maybe it's a saying in the South, the quacks like a rat thing, but it seemed to come from nowhere, and it got a big pop from me. So the Stinger just re-emphasizes that he's going to see Hulk Hogan next week, and they will settle it man to man, and then leave the ring, and that is a great teaser. I don't know what the ratings are yet, but I'm sure Nitro will have went up significantly based on this one segment, based on this one match just being a big draw. Sting, he maybe could have said more about the Lex Luger thing, but they want a mystery, they want a serial, they want something to make us tune in every week to see what happens next. So I quite like this segment, and I really liked whenever Mean Gene transitioned back to Mongo, Brain, you con man, and Eric Bischoff, not a con man. Just the malice in Mean Gene's voice whenever he said, Brain, you con man, was fantastic. And the same way that Bobby, had heard earlier on that being a con man was an art form, I'm sure he appreciated Mean Gene Okerlund for that one. So we cut back to the announce team, and Eric just very quickly points out the facts that Sting walked out with Lex Luger last week and saved Lex Luger, and Lex is a baddie, so surely that means Sting is also a baddie. So just Eric Bischoff expertly laying the seeds, getting some attention, some intrigue towards this Hulk Hogan versus Sting match on next week, and I am sure this is going to be a draw as we close this episode of Monday Nitro on the 13th of November 1995. And it was a good show, but I would not have expected on a show with Randy Savage versus Meng, and Sting versus Dean Malenko, and Sasaki versus Chris Benoit, who I believe was a huge Japanese star at the time. I did not expect for Johnny B. Bad and Eddie Guerrero for the WCW Television Championship to be the undisputed highlight of the show for me. It really stole the show, and if anybody's listens to this, I would ask you to check out the match and see if it's just because it's near midnight and I'm tired and, you know, not got much energy about me, that this match, just because it was fast paced and because Mark Mero surprised me, that it maybe wasn't as good as I thought it was, because in my head right now that was a very near perfect 10-minute television match. It really was. So this has been Matty D's Nitro Dream. Thank you very much for checking me out today, and I hope that you're all keeping well. I will try to get in here with more updates. It has been a crazy couple of months for me, and hopefully now we're getting into the summertime, things will settle down. But thank you for anybody who's still watching, and I'll try and upload more often. But this has been Matty D's Nitro Dream. I hope that you're all looking after yourselves and keeping well, and I'll see you all again very soon. Thank you.